All right, Black Goose family, let's get into the Errol Spence news of the day. Obviously, Spence versus Ugas is coming closer and closer and closer. So, obviously, there's going to be a lot more media when it comes surrounding Errol Spence, when it comes surrounding Ugas, but specifically Errol Spence, because we all know we're just waiting, and waiting for hopefully an Errol Spence Terrence Crawford fight. That's basically what all this is. That's all the media. Every single question is, are you gonna fight Terrence Crawford? Are you scared of him? Is that who you want next? Can we make the fight happen? And come on now, we all know Earl Spence's demeanor. We all know how he, approaches himself when it comes to preparing for fights and approaches him, approaches media days. Like he ain't gonna give you much. He really ain't gonna give you anything. To be real with you, he's gonna give you probably the most like the shortest and quickest and most general answers you can think of when it comes to a fighter. And part of it is why we all fuck with Earl, because you know what I'm saying, he's an absolute savage in the ring, but outside the ring, you can take it or leave it. You know what I'm saying? Terrence Crawford's kind of the same way, you know? And that's why I always stand behind the fact is like, you can't tell me one is a bigger pay-per-view star than the other, because they both have trash personalities. And I don't mean as like a person or a stand-up man, but I mean in the terms of entertainment, in the terms of building a fight up, making people hyped for a fight. They are both very trash at it. We both understand that all the talking and all the hype and excitement is when they get in the ring. So that's just the fact. With that being said, that doesn't mean I ain't finna make no video for y'all Black Goose fam when I see a headline about Errol Spence and I want to talk about it and I'm interested. And this particular headline is one of them joints. And I want to see what he got to say, because if Errol Spence saying he wants 2 more fights at 147, well, shit. The only 2 I can think of is Keith Thurman and Terrence Crawford. Why would you fight anyone else? You can't go from Ugas and then all of a sudden you fight some rando. That wouldn't make no sense. And if we're talking about 2 more fights at 147, then that means he probably plan on fighting one more time at the end of the year, and then probably one more time at 147 at the beginning of the year, or maybe summer of next year. You feel me? They're making this move to 154. But it's not about what I think. It's not about my speculation, people. It's about what Errol Spence had to say. We could break that down. Well, at least first let's read it, then we'll break it down. We're not going to go into too much detail when it comes to this, because I know it's probably not much, because Spence never says much. But let's get into it. Errol Spence, I got 2 more fights at 147. Then your boy's moving up like the Jeffersons. You heard me? So, and the biggest hint yet, that Terrence Crawford will be taking place this year. Errol Spence made it clear today that he got 2 more fights left at 147 before moving to 154. So, Errol Spence speaking to the DAZN Boxing Show. I've been done with this weight. Once I do what I said I was going to do, get these belts, then move up. I got 2 more fights at 147, and then I'm moving all the way up. So once again, as always, I'm right than a motherfucker. I'm right than a motherfucker. I'm always right when it comes to Spence. He's never going to say much. He's never going to talk too much. You know what I'm saying? He's just going to give you the real. He's going to give you what it is. As always, he's not implementing any names. He's not saying anything about anybody, because he doesn't want anybody's hopes to get too high and make it seem like, oh, you ducking type shit, which is smart business-wise. But I would like to hear some names. I would like him to say, I have 2 more fights left in me, and I want Thurman, and I want Crawford, because we all know that's what he's talking about. That's what I do give Terrence Crawford. When Crawford was on the Porter Way podcast after beating Sean Porter, he named who he wanted to fight before he ended up either making a move up to 154 or retiring. And he said, I want Spence, I want Ugas, I want Thurman. If I can get those 3 fights at 147, I'll be good. I'll retire. If I can't get those fights, I'll move up to 154, become undisputed, and then retire. So, I give Crawford that. The difference between him and Spence, Crawford's been saying the names. For some reason, Spence feels like he won't say his name. It's kind of similar when I was watching Jermell Charlo on the Mike Tyson podcast, where Tyson was like, call the names out, nigga. And Jamal was like, I want everybody. He was like, who? And Jamal was like, I want the best. He was all, say the specific name. I want whoever's at the top. So that's what I kind of feel Spence be doing. Is like, he will never just specifically say, I want this guy and this guy. He always says, he's vague about it. Like, I want to stay at 147 or I'm done with the weight, but, I'll stick around if the right fights happen. So I give Crawford that. He says the names that he wants. He wants Ugas, Crawford, he wants Ugas, Thurman, and Spence. So I give him that. I give him that edge over Spence. Now, this part right here is new to me. I didn't know anything about it. I probably could have just made a whole nother video, but let's go ahead and talk about it here. Spence says Jermell Charlo fight possible at 154. I think so. If it makes money, why not? Said Spence when he asked if he'd be interested in fighting middleweight champion Jermell Charlo. So you'll fight Jermell before you'll fight Terrence. We're brothers, so brothers are supposed to break bread. We'll cross that bridge if it ends up happening. So this is also a possibility too. You know what would be crazy, guys? What if the Errol Spence Terrence Crawford fight we don't get at 147, but we get it at 154? Because I'm like, okay, Crawford is talking about he would love the winner of Castano versus Jermell. Spence doesn't have a problem fighting Jermell, and he wants to move to 154. Is there a possibility we won't see them fight at 147, but see them fight at 154? I don't know. I want to be mad at that. I think that'd be interesting. I think that's a little bit more of an advantage actually for Spence. If you want to be 100, because I think Spence is a little bit more naturally bigger than Terrence. But what do you guys think about that? Let me know on this particular video. Do you think, Spence is being legit? Do you think really he's going to fight 2 more times at 147? Or do you think he's going to make his move up? And if he is going to fight 2 more times, do you think Terrence Crawford is involved with that? Do you think there's a possibility of seeing Crawford and Spence meet at, 154 instead of 147? And then also, do you think Spence is for real when he's talking about when, he has no problem fighting Jermell if it does come to that? I think all these are interesting questions, interesting takes. I'd love to know you guys' opinions, so please drop the comments below. Subscribe to the channel if you're not part of the family. And I'm out of here for the day. But as always, stay blessed. Whatever. Stay